guys handle 80% of the intelligence workload. You're 7 times the size of the CIA.
The question isn't, why should you work for the NSA? The question is, why shouldn't you?
What's up, guys? Boy, Benny. Don't believe everything you read, especially if it's from the corporate press who hates you and hates America. There's a report out earlier today from Bloomberg saying that Vivek Ramaswamy will not be Donald Trump's VP, but we're not exactly sure how accurate this is because we've been doing our own phone calls and, well, we're better sourced than Bloomberg. Got to be perfectly honest with you. So what about this entire VP race and why is it so important? Why do we care so very much about it? Why are we so obsessed with Donald Trump's VP pick? Well, it all began with Donald Trump saying he already knew who he was going to pick even before the Iowa caucuses.
Who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that, really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any of them?
I will. I've already started like Christie better.
This was the day that Chris Christie dropped out, of course, right? You hear the crowd cheering. But what this does is leave open the opportunity for somebody who ran against Donald Trump, as Vivek did in the 2024 election, to potentially be his vice president. And then Donald Trump has gone on and said that he is looking forward to potentially working with other people who ran against him, even name-dropping Ron DeSantis. Donald Trump said he's considering DeSantis, Ramaswamy, Kristi Noem, former Democrat Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as a potential VP pick. Holy schmoly. Donald Trump said this before the South Carolina primaries. And so this is quite interesting, ladies and gentlemen. The reason, of course, that this is an important decision for Donald Trump is because this person has to be willing to run the country. This person has to be able to take over after Trump's single term in office because Trump will be term limited to 1 term. Trump reveals criteria for running mate, name drops 2 top Republicans. Who are they? Tim Scott and Kristi Noem. Tim Scott is a senator from South Carolina, and Kristi Noem is a governor from South Dakota. Now, remember, this is all about addition, not subtraction. Somebody's going to have to explain to me what Kristi Noem does to add to Donald Trump's campaign, or Tim Scott for that matter, but I'm all ears. What criteria do you want to identify who your running mate is? Always it's got to be who is going to be a good president, Trump says. Obviously, you always have to think about what's going to happen in an emergency. Things happen, right? No matter who you are, things happen. That's got to be number 1, Trump says. So this obviously had us rip-roaring over to Vivek. Vivek Ramaswamy is somebody who is a big-time favorite of our audience. We do polls all the time. The most shocking poll I ever did while we were live is Tucker or Vivek. And Vivek won walking away with it versus Tucker. So, I mean, it's quite interesting. Vivek would be an addition, I think, to Donald Trump. I think the polling shows that. Vivek would bring in young people and like sort of the Silicon Valley class. And Vivek would also bring in independents along with first-generation immigrants, right? And so a lot of people really, really liked Vivek. And Donald Trump, when accepting Vivek's endorsement, said, "We're going to be working together for a very long time," said Donald Trump as the two of them hugged. Donald Trump like a proud father there with Vivek on stage. And then since then, Vivek has been going on TV and really like ramping up the rhetoric, saying that he looks forward to debating Kamala Harris, which of course would be the vice president's debate, right? Listen to this.
If you ever get a chance to debate or talk to like Kamala Harris, and Biden's not going to be debating, I don't think anyone, but it'd be good just to say, why shouldn't George Washington be banned? If you're going to take all these other names off, all these statues down, why should Washington still be around as any figure we revere, given his slave-holding past?
I'll file that away, Laura, and I'm looking forward to hearing Kamala's answer. I don't expect it to be super coherent, but I'll be sure to face off with her on it.
I'll be sure to face off with her on it. Well, what does that say? Well, it says you're going to debate her, right? I mean, that's what he says. Vivek chooses his words very carefully. Glenn Beck, somebody who chooses his words possibly less carefully than Vivek, but nonetheless knows a lot of the players, is saying that everyone is telling Donald Trump to pick Vivek Ramaswamy. This is what Glenn Beck had to say.
He called me and he said, any advice on who I should pick for vice president?
Oh, really?
Who do you think? Not that he's probably calling everyone.
But that's great that you're on that list.
And so he said, who do you think? And I said, I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but this is the day, I think it was the day he trashed Vivek. And I said, Vivek. And he said, why do you say that? He said, that's the number one response from everybody I've asked that question.
The number one response. And then Glenn Beck goes on to like explain why it's the number one response. Because Vivek would be loyal and he'd be somebody who would be like a pocket president, right? Like he'd be somebody who, like the deep state wouldn't want to get rid of Donald Trump because they'd get Vivek. It's actually life insurance, quite frankly, picking Vivek. But ladies and gentlemen, here's what Bloomberg has to say this morning. Trump rules out Vivek Ramaswamy as running mate as he eyes new team. So that's quite interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Again, our sources are better than Bloomberg, and our sources tell us, no, nobody has been ruled out. In fact, our source literally told us, and this is as close to a source as you can possibly get with Donald Trump. Our source literally told us that this is called Trump time. And Trump time is like effectively like changing your mind and like living with the energy of the moment and like grabbing the energy of the moment and working with that. So he said, no, Trump's on Trump time. Meaning he's deciding in real time. He's like taking in all the information and like assessing the data in real time. So is Bloomberg misreading Trump? Is this another fake headline? We don't know. We like Vivek a lot, but we'll see. Let's read. Former president eyeing loyalty ideological agreement in pick. Trump team aiming for a smooth transition with November win. Donald Trump has ruled out Vivek Ramaswamy for his running mate and instead eyeing the entrepreneur for a cabinet job, which would be lame. The reason why it's lame is because these cabinet jobs really can't get a lot done. According to people familiar with the matter, Republican presidential nominee sizes up possible administration. Trump personally told Ramaswamy he won't be his vice presidential pick, according to the people briefed on the discussion, but is considering him for posts including Homeland Security Secretary. Some Trump allies see Ramaswamy as ideal for the job because he excels at public speaking and as an Indian American son of an immigrant could neutralize criticism of sweeping immigration restrictions. Their conversation is just one of many Trump had with recent allies about administration positions. As he seized hold of the Republican nomination, loyalty, ideological compatibility, and perceived electoral power are the metrics by which Trump is evaluating possible picks, according to people familiar with the process, spoke on the condition of anonymity. Those who have impressed Trump and his team for possible cabinet roles include former GOP primary foe, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, as well as Representative Lee Stefanik and Rob Lightzinger, U.S. Trade Representative Rob Lightzinger. Trump is also looking for a running mate who isn't motivated by the limelight, but who will help give him a measurable edge in a race against Joe Biden. According to those familiar with the thinking, Trump has confided those close advisors and allies. None of the names circulating the potential running mates have impressed him much. Ousted U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is seen to be the top candidate to serve as chief of staff. McCarthy, who turned down the job in Trump's last term because he wanted to serve as speaker, has assets that Trump views positively, including an understanding of the Capitol Hill, federal agencies, and budgets. Former president and his advisors are eager to avoid what they see as a crucial mistake from the first term when a chaotic transition effort and the appointment of a series of top-level aides and cabinet members who sought to constrain rather than enable Trump's agenda. Well, that is, of course, 100% correct. His search has been aided not only by his aides Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivieta, but also family members. Son-in-law Jared Kushner has recently increased his presence with the campaign, calling and texting and offering suggestions. The president's son, Donald Jr., has voiced interest in key transition role, partly to help block people from top jobs who are opposed to Trump loyalists known as MAGA hardliners. Oh, yeah. But even as allies tout loyalists who would help impose strict immigration controls, new tariffs, and federal bureaucracy, reordering U.S. foreign policy, Trump remains captivated by those he sees as successful, independent, wealthy, and well-dressed. Well, that would rule out ALX, sadly, our executive producer, who famously has a photo with Donald Trump, and he's wearing two mismatched tube socks. Jason Miller, senior campaign advisor, said far too early to be speculating about who will fill cabinet and senior roles. Apparently, somebody has decided to list out everybody who has ever met with President Trump and is now speculating on their potential participation. The truth is that unless you hear it directly from President Trump or his campaign, it's all BS, Miller said. That is exactly what we just heard. That's exactly what we just heard. We just heard that this is all BS. And that unless, like, it's on Trump time, right? Donald Trump makes these decisions in real time, and with the energy of the moment. So that's what we've heard, ladies and gentlemen. And that makes us really happy. Vivek is obviously a guest on our program all the time. Here he is educating Mike Lee on the TikTok bill. Pretty amazing that Vivek was able to do that live. And he obviously makes a really great case for Donald Trump when asked. Vivek has been ubiquitous making the case for Donald Trump all across media. He and I did a live event in South Carolina right before the South Carolina primaries. And Vivek had this to say about being Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. An astute answer. You know what's a question you're going to get, and I know you get it 3 times a day. What has that conversation been like? Has there been any conversation? But more importantly, you personally, on like a physical level, on a spiritual level, on a family level, would you even be wanting that type of responsibility? Would you be prepared for that? What's your gut say?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into this out of respect to President Trump and his ability to lead, going to go into any conversations or anything like that. But I will say this is, there's many ways to drive change in this country, but the person who leads the executive branch deserves to actually make those decisions for himself. So I think what matters much less is my gut. I think the gut of the person who's actually setting his vision for his next administration, that's what matters most. Because if some way, whoever's in that spot, but it wasn't quite the right fit, but you did it because you thought it was going to be more electorally successful or whatever, no, that's not going to work. So I think that part of the mistake is we've, with the exception of Trump, mostly had presidents who didn't actually run the executive branch. They themselves were puppets. I think what's unique about Donald Trump is he is going to be a president who actually runs the branch of government that he's elected to run. And that means these decisions should be made exclusively by him. And I think the VP is not the only important decision that he's going to have to make when it comes to staffing this next administration. Every cabinet position, it's not just the cabinet positions. It's even positions, certainly ones that I'm not going to be the person to take, but are really important. Who runs the Office of Personnel Management? Who runs personnel selection at the White House? Who runs the Office of Management and Budget, the budgeting process, at a moment when we're $34 trillion in the hole? And so I think, if you're the news media or if in the context of, obviously, the VP selection is the next big selection, there's a temptation to latch on to that. I think that's an important position. I think that there are many important positions. And so my commitment is I'm going to do whatever I can maximally do to have a positive impact on this country and respect the decision that Donald Trump makes and how he wants to run that administration. And whatever form that takes, I'm ready for it. That's my honest answer for it.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, fake news gonna fake. I'm gonna certify this article 100% fake news, put a stamp on it. Bam! Stamp it. It's fake. But I think there are some things that are true about the general premise of the article, which is that Donald Trump's first term was staffed with a bunch of people that are disloyal to the president, and you need to make sure that loyalty is paramount in this new administration because, well, the demons and the dogs are out, and you got to have a good team, a good squad, if you're going to take on the swamp, if you're going to take on the deep state. Got to come correct with your best boys. It's your boy Benny. We can be your best boy. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel to stay incredibly based.